Hey there, kids. This is chapter 33. Well, it's hard to see if I was slower. Well, it's chapter 33 of the Oddmire Book 1, The Changeling. The voyage to the hollow cliff hoard came to Tin in waves and flashes as he drifted in and out of consciousness. There were trees and hills and big rocks, and soon they were winding down a narrow path along the face of a steep cliff. It was just the sort of thing Cole would have loved, Tin mused sleepily. Where was Cole? Were humans allowed into the hoard? When Tin opened his eyes again, he found himself gazing up at the rocky ceiling in a dimly lit cave. The air smelled like seawater and something sweet. Chocolate? He sat up. He was resting on a small bed. His hands had been treated and wrapped with soft linen. The skin beneath them was a pale greenish gray, but it had stopped changing. Were his fingers shorter? In his mouth, he could still feel sharp fangs. Was this who he was now? A few feet away, a goblin wearing a weathered felt top hat with a spray of bright red cardinal feathers tucked in the brim was pouring something from a steaming copper pot into little clay cups. Ah, your timing's perfect, lad, the goblin said softly. Oh, who are you? Name is Nud, son of Gwyn, high chief of the hollow cliff hoard, and maker, he gave Tin a wink, of grand hot cocoa. You, you made me cocoa? Aye, the goblin handed Tin a cup. Drink up, lad. Your brother's had 3 already, and some cakes. Dinna worry. I have a few put aside for you. Tin took the cup, still staring at Ned. My brother? Is he here? Is my mom? Aye, and the witches and a hinky. I had to boot half the forest out of the cave when you first arrived. Your ma and your brother took the longest to convince. They're just outside now. Can I see them? Soon enough. I think we need a wee chat first, just you and me. Tin took a deep breath. He nodded. If you don't mind, Mr. Ned, please, could you first tell me? Tin hesitated. What do I look like? Right handsome, Ned assured him. Handsome like a person or handsome like... Chief Ned pulled a stool over to the bedside and sat down. Do you know what you are, lad? I'm a goblin, aren't I? A changeling. That's right. Do you know what that means? I change? The chief took a deep breath. Okay, right. Basics first. Fable sat with her feet dangling off the goblin landing. Down below her, waves washed against the feet of the cliffs, and up above, the last of the color was fading from the sky. Fable, the boards creaked and swayed ever so slightly as her mother came to stand beside her. Are you all right? Mama, am I human? Of course you are. You are my daughter. But I'm something else too, aren't I? The queen pursed her lips. Is this because of what that pesky thief Cole said about how does having a father work? Fable turned to look at her mother at last. Do I have a father? This is neither the time nor the place for a delicate Tin and Cole had a father. He went away. But at least they had one. Did my father go away too? Is he human? Fable, is he something else? Fable, please. I want to know what I am. The queen leaned on the weathered railing and turned her eyes to the stars. She breathed with the rhythm of the waves for several seconds. You had a father, she said at last. And yes, he went away before you were born. But he doesn't define who you are. Are you mad at him? Fable fidgeted with the railing. For going away? Furious, agreed the queen, but her voice didn't sound angry. It sounded sad. Was he a bad man? The queen tore her eyes away from the stars and lowered herself to sit beside her daughter on the creaky platform. She wrapped one corner of the warm bearskin cloak around Fable's shoulder, and Fable leaned into her mother. Do you remember when I used to tell you bedtime stories, the queen said, about the other side? So that's what you are, Chief Ned finished. The most sacred of our kind, a living being out of luck and chaos incarnate. Tin swallowed. He did not feel like chaos incarnate. He felt exhausted. So it's my fault, he managed. I'm the reason magic is draining away from this side of the barrier. That other place, the Anwin, is pulling magic away because of what I am, a changeling. Ned shook his head and clucked. Nay, lad, the drain started before you were born, but my being born made it worse. Ned took off his battered top hat and set it on the table. Perhaps, he admitted, but like everyone says, what makes things worse today will only make things better tomorrow. I'm pretty sure that's not something people say, said Tim. Maybe it's just goblins. Well, anyway, our ancestors thought that they had figured it out. The changeling ritual solved everything. An earthly child stolen away, a magic child left behind, balanced to both sides. Win-win. Except for the babies, said Tin. The ones you kidnapped to make it work. Right, Ned winced. I want you to understand my father taught me that not child on earth was e'er so beloved as a child in the Anwin. I believed him too. The fair folk raise human children as their own, lavish them with gifts, fill them their every waking hour with joy and wonder. Life is short and miserable here on earth, but children in the Anwin can live 2, maybe 300 years. What sort of mother wouldn't want her child to live a long and glorious life in Anwin? A mother who wanted to be a mother, said Tin. Ned nodded soberly. You're a sharp lad, Tin. Were they kind to you on the other side? Said Fable. More than kind, the queen told her daughter's arm. I was their princess. I ate meals that tasted like sunbeams and wore dresses that shone like starlight. When I got older, they even taught me spells and charms. They smiled and laughed and applauded as I learned how to weave my own clumsy magic. One fairy gentleman smiled more kindly than the rest. He was young by fairy standards and fair by any. He was fair? That means he was handsome. He made no advances, but over time I started to wish that he would. Years passed. He waited for me. Some of the fairy folk who had once applauded my lessons lost interest in me, but he did not. He did not age. I did. And when I was ready, I made my own advances. My fair gentleman did not protest. Did you kiss him? There was a courtship, and there was a wedding, and there was a wedding night. And then one day, I found I had conceived a child of my own. But did you kiss him? Many times. Fable smiled up at her mother and then crinkled her brow. Her mother's eyes were glistening in the starlight. Are those happy memories or sad ones? Both, said the queen. They were happy and sad times. Why were they sad? For all the love I had for that place, those people, it was never my home. They were not unkind, but they were not my family. They had a name for me, but it was not my name. It all felt wrong, like a waking dream. I had been stolen. I did not want to be a mother in that place. I did not want my child to be born never knowing her real home. I did not want that for you, Fable. That place was not what my mother had wanted for me. Fable looked down at the waves. Can you still remember her? I remember the sound of my mother's voice when she said my name. The queen's eyes drifted beyond the dimming sunset, and I remember a goodnight kiss. She bent down and kissed Fable on the forehead. I wish that I had more of her to remember. Fable held her mother's hand beneath the cloak. What did your fair gentleman think about you coming back to Earth? I think it made him sad, but he promised me that he would take me back across the veil. Our child would know the earth, he promised. Did he keep his promise? The queen took a deep breath and then gave Fable a smile that almost reached her eyes. We're here, aren't we? And do you not know the earth, child? Fable nodded, satisfied. Did you ever get to see your mother again? The queen's gaze darkened, and she stared out into the sea, and the reflections of angry waves rolled across her eyes, and she did not answer. Fable tried another question. Do you ever miss the other side? No, not even a little bit? Not even the part about being their princess? Her mother's jaw tightened. I am no one's princess, said the queen. It was the old woman who changed my mind, Chief Ned said. He poured Tin another mug of chocolate. It was the last of the pot, thick and warm, and it made Tin's whole chest feel hot as he sipped it. My father was still the chief when I met her. The old queen, the first queen, your witchy friend outside, would be her spitting image if she had a few more gray hairs and wrinkles. Anyway, she used to have a wee little cabin in the woods right on the other side of the mire. I think I've seen it, said Tin. She was a sad, sweet old thing, said Ned. Tried to kill me several times. She had spirit, that one. He chuckled at the memory. In the end, we came to understand each other. She gave me something I didn't even know I needed. In return, I gave her a promise. What did she give you? Forgiveness, he said, for what my kind had done. Tin nodded. What did you promise her in return? I promised her that when I was chief, he said, I would ne'er let another mother weep over an empty crib on our behalf. I meant it too. So when you was born, with magic leaving the wildwood and the horde getting nervous, I found myself with quite the dilemma. You had to either risk your whole horde and keep your promise, or save your horde by stealing a child, said Tin. Ned nodded. Two bad options. Neither fit for the chief I'd swore I'd be. I thought I had a year to make up choice. That's tradition. A changeling is always reared for 1 year before the exchange. Prepared to take on its sacred role, taught how to wield its power, bonded to the horde so it can find its way home. There are all manners of rituals and ceremonies in that year. I don't remember any of them. Tin shook his head. Ned winced. That's because none of them ever happened. You met Cole, yes? Tin nodded. In the forest. Well, Cole's the one who muddled up the whole affair to begin with. Bet that chaos magic for you. Even he hadn't nudged the universe by stealing you, I might never have found the third option. The third option? Ned cackled. When the veil between the worlds is thin, magic can filter through just a little, just enough. Every 13 years, the barrier pulses and the veil gets a wee bit thinner. Goblins call this time the veil moon. At the height of the veil moon, a powerful goblin can slide into the fabric of the veil itself, into the thin place in between, and give it a nudge. If we nudge it just right, the universe gives us what we need. So why don't you just do that? Why do you need me? Generation by generation, the ceremony has become less effective. I performed it myself 13 years ago, the year that you were born. What happened? Well, I just told you. You were born. Ned gave Tin a wink. The universe didn't give us any magic, but they gave us a changeling, the most powerful of our kind in a generation, but also the most human of our kind. He hadn't a nudged the universe by stealing you. I might never have found the whoops. Oh dear. But also the most human of our kind in history. More than a goblin, more than a man. You belong to both worlds, boy. You're neither here nor there. A goblin can push, a human can pull. But maybe, just maybe, a child of both worlds can do both. If you can do this, it'd mean we could all survive, lad. It'd mean no more children stolen from the cribs. Magic could live in the wildwood again. Tin swallowed. It was precisely what the thing had said to him within the shell of the shadows. You need me because I'm neither here nor there, he whispered. Ned seemed to read his thoughts. You're no less goblin for being one of them, he said, and you're no less one of them for being a goblin. He put a hand on Tin's shoulder. He put a hand on Tin's shoulder. We need you, lad. They need you. The whole wildwood needs you to be both. And that's the end of chapter 33. And this is chapter 34. There. Bingo.